Hello, hello.
You're unmuted if you guys want to say hi.
Hi, Alistair. How's it?
Just one second.
Can you hear us okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon. It is 5:08 p.m. on September 3rd, 2025. In the District of Columbia State Board of Education working session is now called to order. The working session is being streamed live on the State Board's YouTube page for members of the public to view. The roll will now be called to determine the presence of a quorum. Deputy Director, please call the roll.
Student representatives, so if you're present, say present. Representative Chamberlain. Present. Representative Jenkins. Present. Representative Mazudar. Right. That works. Representative Fareed. Present. Representative Best.
Present.
Representative Chang. Representative Coulson. Representative Goulet. Representative Henderson.
Present.
Representative Johnson Law. Representative Thompson. Present. Representative Williams.
Present.
President Patterson.
Present.
Mr. President, you can-
A quorum has been determined and the state will now proceed to meeting. First, I would just like to welcome again, I had the honor of wearing each one of you. And it was a pleasure meeting family members that went to different schools, to do so. So thank you guys for giving me that opportunity to come out and show us that you're at school and in classroom with the vice president. So got to meet a lot of students during this process. So welcome, you guys are officially here. We had a conversation about what this means, so here we are, okay?
Thank
You're welcome. Next, I would normally present the leadership report. I did not type it up, so I'm giving you a leadership report at a different time. You will find it in your emails, members, and for it to be posted on our Twitter page shortly. With that being said, we'll move to our executive director report. Our executive director is out of office, so I will turn to our deputy director. Our children to share updates with members.
Well, good evening, members of the Community Board of Education. I first want to start by thanking you for your trust in my leadership during Director Butler's absence. And next, I want to send another warm welcome to our new student representatives, as this is their first meeting. And the policy team, of which is my team, is especially looking forward to collaborating with you on committee work and resolutions and more. And I'm also really excited to see you lead your first SAC meeting on Monday, September 8th, which is just in a few short days. And thank you, members, for your flexibility in attending working sessions here at our swing space. Our office construction is on time and on track. I also want to thank our admin support specialist, Katie Mankoff, for jumping in during her first few weeks on the job and taking the lead on coordination. It has been extremely smooth transition because of her. Over the past several weeks, I have been working with board leadership and the facilitators to finalize the agenda for the upcoming fall board retreats on September 13th. I will send the final agenda, logistics, and pre-work assignments to members by the end of this week. Finally, some reminders. If you haven't already, please send board leadership any proposed agenda items for their upcoming meeting with Superintendent Mitchell by this Friday at 12 p.m. Additionally, as Director Butler mentioned last month, State Board staff is closing out the budget and procurement for fiscal year 2025 and planning for fiscal year 2026. Staff will follow up during the September committee meetings so that spending plans can be shared at our October working session. And that concludes my updates, Mr. President.
Thank you, Deputy Director. Are there any questions for our deputy? All right, thank you guys so much. We'll now debrief on the August public meeting panel, which was focused on what graduates need today. Members, you have in your materials a summary of documents with key highlights from the panel. Do members have any comments or next steps they would like to raise? I think someone that was coming in online. But out there,
I can kind of, yeah, one of the main ideas that's kind of sticking with me was just like the role of internships that I feel like we heard from multiple perspectives. I find that compelling. I feel like real world experience is really helpful for students while they're in high school before they leave high school. I'm not saying that we like make a requirement by any means, but just something that we kind of think about how that could fit or work with promoting and encouraging it. Either with Aussie or as we continue on with conversations with the task force. So that's one idea that I wanted to kind of lift up that I think will help provide access to different opportunities for students while they're still in high school.
Thank you. Are there other comments? Coming from our August public meeting?
I know the members raised, they wanted to better understand what employers were looking for. And how we signal to employers, and so I do want us to, I guess like, lose that idea. And figure out, and there were a couple of things that people said about it, I think that were particularly interesting. I think at this point, which we can probably discuss on committee reports, my biggest question is like, when do we actually get the requirements, the proposed requirements? Because we do have several individuals who have reserved seats on the task force. One of them actually being one of the candidates that were there from the federal city council, you know, the Greater Washington Economic Partnership, who can speak to those things. But I do just also want to be conscious about like when would we be able to communicate with them? And then like if there are any changes in the overall timeline of how long the work will take. Those are the things that are at top of my mind. We do want to follow up with Aussie, like again about that, but also like some of the things that I'm seeing, what the work looks like now, like starting to do some of the school visits. I don't know if people have ideas about kind of helping members and task force members wrap their heads around the part that you raised Representative Vice President Williams around internships and seeing how that, you know, how that looks, who does that well, or if we should also be having some accompanying framework or recommendations around like training and supports that actually make that possible. Because the other thing that I heard was like employers want to do it, but there are capacity issues and constraints. And so in addition to the requirements, even if we make the requirements flexible enough to allow the experience, what I heard was what makes a good experience.
Yeah, to speak to your point, Representative Thompson, from my understanding that we're supposed to receive as a board, their updates, the revisions and everything within this month. And then they'll be presenting those in October, from my understanding, a little bit more, and we'll decide when we'll be voting on that. That's my understanding from the days. Initially said they want to push back for another month for the special education and bonus.
Well, they have initially said that they would share it with us. I think our expectation was that they would be presenting at this working session. But it sounds like, you know, it's going to be another month. I think my question too is, like, I know that we as a committee have proposed a longer timeline for what they initially proposed, which had us voting sometime in early 2026, I think January or February. But I was assuming, you know, I can't remember what the delivery was supposed to be. And I just want to make sure that when we're talking with Aussie, as they push the timeline back, we also are not truncating the time alongside that.
Correct. I appreciate that, but yes, they're supposed to be provided to us as a body this month. Prior to us coming to the next working meeting, so I can promise that when they come to the next working meeting, that they will be presented upon it, but they've already released it. Other comments?
I have one other one. It's minor, but also just something I want to flag for everyone that it was like really this I've seen in schools, particularly in schools with high amounts of students with in special populations, the benefits that RSA does and that like transition coordinator does in schools. And it was alarming to me to hear the rate of how many students are on individual caseload with RSA. So like as we start thinking about like budget priorities or like additional supports that like students need to like actually make a good first step after high school, that's something that I think is continually very important. Because having someone whose sole job is to help students develop an individual plan, especially if they're doing something less traditional than just a four-year university, or even if they are particularly with students with special needs, it's a very effective support and they're often overburdened. So they're doing great work. It's just it could be better if they had more staff.
Other comments? Yes, sir.
Next step after high school, coming from the point of view of a student, many of my classmates, we feel as we are entering our senior year, majority say that they feel like they're not ready for college or they're just now thinking about what's their next step. Like they have a good idea, but they don't know how to achieve that. And I just wanted to just bring that up because a lot of people like my school, for example, we have executive courses where we did is partnership with different universities where we take a college course for one semester. And a lot of people don't in my school don't really know about that because I was one of the first students to participate in when it came to our school. So I did the UPenn course. And I found it very beneficial, but I wanted to say that a lot of people don't know about it. And you know, it helped me with my mindset with being ready for college because I know what I want to do after I'm done with school, but a lot of people like still need help figuring that out. And we have like the people like, you know, college and readiness staff, and they do an amazing job, but I feel like a lot of people don't feel comfortable going up to them because they think they only help out with college and not with what their next step can be.
Thank you, sir. See no other comments? Let's please start participate. Staff, thanks, sir. So thanks to everyone. As a reminder, the September public meeting topic will focus on reimagining high school mathematics requirements. The policy theme is finalized in the panel over the next week, so please let me know as soon as possible if you have any final suggestions for the panel. Next on the agenda are committee reports. I'll call on each committee in alphabetical order, and each chair or co-chair will share out and answer any questions for them. Student representative, since this is your first student advisory committee meeting, is coming up on Monday. I won't be asking for a report from you guys, but we look forward to having one in October. Okay. All right, we will start with our administrative committee and cited Vice President Williams.
Thank you. So we met last Thursday. All committee members were present. We have the notes in front of us, but I'm going to highlight just a couple main things. Both the OMB and OSA are working on the 2025 annual report. Since this was in process at our meeting and then has since changed to, there are now 4 openings of positions at the office of the ombudsman, just something for us to kind of know about holistically. And then additionally, the OSA has reported that they've done 31 events so far across all 8 wards. There's also the DCBS block party, which they'll be attending on September 13th. From the state board side in particular, our staff has officially moved into our new building here. So here we sit. And then a couple final things in terms of just back to school concerns were presented, in which the committee discussed general concerns with regards to the increased law enforcement presence in the district. And the chief student advocate and the ombudsman reported that there have been some concerns about transportation delays due to checkpoints that have been set up around the city. So that is a concern with being able to get to school on time and to get to school knowing how students are traveling the city. Um, we have two final things on the back that allow people to read at their leisure around the hybrid public meetings update and then also the office leads update. But that's it on my end, and I'll take any questions that people have.
Are there any questions for the administrative committee? I'm shaking, Stephen is shaking, no. But so, I believe this unfortunately, well, Representative
I
Bland.
don't know if it's a question or something that I want to put on the agenda for new business, so I will let you decide. We should talk about it now or then. I want to talk about purchasing as it relates to the student advisor. And just figuring out how we move forward with that. So would that be something to talk about now, you think, or should we wait for new business?
I would wait till business.
Okay.
Any others? All right, career, college career and life readiness, Representative Thompson and Representative James.
I'll take this one this time. So we met last week, we had an update from President Patterson on the education as a civil right issue, and we will be awaiting a new resolution version from him. We spent the bulk of our time working on the graduation requirements task force. We have narrowed down from our initial number of applicants and are close to finalizing our choices. We're just trying to achieve a good balance of representation in terms of roles that people will play, as well as geographic representation. So we're gonna hopefully finish that up within this week. And once we finalize the task force, we will work on scheduling the first meeting, which we hope to have in September. And again, we are hopefully going to get to the proposal for speed as well. We briefly discussed the AI resolutions that were referred to our committee from Representative SBOE. We didn't get deep into those because we want to give Representative Best a chance to speak to those. So we will get back to those next month.
Thank you. Questions for committee?
We had a question, yes, actually, one of the things that we did want to make sure was on the agenda for the next meeting, obviously, was the site visits. And starting to identify both whether the best places to go to see some of the things around standards that we have in action, and if they would like to coordinate with us around that, or have recommendations. That maybe creating the DME's radar as well. And the fact that we want to start to schedule some of the visits in relation to the task force work.
Thank you. Representative Blake.
Yeah, thank you all. Two follow-up questions. So one, I appreciate y'all taking the leadership on this. In terms of, I know people have asked me who have applied when they'll expect to hear. And you said within the next week. Is there a hard and fast date that feels reasonable, or something that I should tell people if they ask again, or if I need to follow up with anyone? It's just one here, because I know it's a quick turnaround. I was wanting to get the first meeting scheduled for sometime in September.
We had not set a hard date. Next week.
The next week, okay.
If someone asks you, they can contact.
Okay.
Or us.
Cool.
Soon.
That works. And then just in terms of the request for board leadership to add scheduling site visits related to the work, can I just get some further clarification on the thinking there?
Yeah, so we've talked about this a few different times, but it's been a while. So the idea is to get a feedback loop for us on standards that we pass. So particularly the ones that we've done recently. Financial literacy, social, emotional, social things, social studies and health. So that we are getting some feedback teachers, students who are in the implementation. And it also coincides and would be helpful, we think, to your grant requirements.
That makes sense. I don't think, yeah, we can definitely add it to the agenda. I would want meaningful information on how it's being implemented too.
Right. In no others, I will move on to educator excellence, and I believe Representative Chang is online, so
Hello.
are you ready for your report?
Yes. Hello, everybody. So our focus, as you know, is supporting first-year teachers, and we have, over the course of this year, held panels and had conversations and done research building off of what Mary Levy had done for the board in previous years, and for the student reps. This was a series of teacher retention reports that we had commissioned from a researcher over several years, and our committee decided to really hone in on supporting first year teachers, since those are some of the highest those that demographic has some of the highest percentages of leaving um, our system, and feel in our conversations with them that they lack support. So we are we have been talking with folks from other states, right, and learning from their best practices, as an example. And what we're doing next now is, in addition to the conversations we've had with individual educators, doing more now to look at what LEAs are doing to support their first year teachers, right? That's the next step of our work plan. And so we'll be reaching out to groups like the Charter Alliance, OSSI, WTU, to get feedback. And actually, this is something that, if there are if members would be open to, even if you're not in our committee, either connecting us to an LEA leader or an educator who may be open to talking with us about their experiences supporting first year educators in their system, or in their own experiences with it. That's the stage that we're at to really dig deeper into, and would love that connection over to me and Jen would be great. And then we'll follow up.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions for Representative Chang? Thank you. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Oh,
Go ahead.
when you say, new teachers, are we assuming within 3 years, like what's you all's people have different definitions, but what's you all's definition for new teachers as we're talking about?
We've been saying first year, but I think, if they've been in for 3 years, I'd love to hear about their experiences in their first year. Yeah.
And like the work continued from the previous committee iteration with Dr. O'Leary, and when we had the Learning Policy Institute, they said 25% of teachers in DCBS are in their first year of teaching, and the next 25% are from years 2 to 5. So we still have about 50% of teachers who are like within their first 5 years of teaching, and like, we're better than a lot of places nationally, but like where the profession has been in previous years and decades, it's still like, a problematic place in that you have so many teachers who are early on in their career. So I think there could still be supports for like years, 2, 3, 4 as well. But we want to make sure that like teachers aren't just like one and done, and then we're churning over. When if we get a mentor or we get additional support, like you can help people improve, because that first year of teaching can be very demanding.
Yeah, that all makes sense. I guess I was just. We're using the shared.
Mhm.
Okay. The videos, is that just so many different pictures of new early career. Yeah, for those reasons, we're talking about, no critiques on the approval. I just want to be clear who I should refer. So it sounds like, you all's definition is we're focused on first year teachers. And you would also be interested in folks who would closely remember.
Yes, that's right.
Virtue.
That's right. Right. I mean, there's formally what's happening, and then we'd love to know what the actual experience has been.
And we're not like by any means trying to like recreate the wheel with any recommendations, but feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, representative change, but the two big like things that come to mind for me and like that the committee is trying to figure out is like one, what does like our end product look like at the end of this iteration? Like, is it a report? Is it a set of standards? Is it, policy recommendations? Like, what do we really want to get behind advocating that will actually work? And then two, like what models of other places like are gonna be useful? Because like we've heard from many states at our previous committee meeting that when you tie licensure to certification, like it's been very effective in driving teacher development. And that could be an easy policy shift that could just that a lot of other states are doing. And then there's also a variety of school districts in Northern Virginia that already have these models in place that could be relevant for us as well.
All right, there being no other questions or comments, I'm going to move to student experience and engagement, Representative Goulet.
Well, thank you. We had a full house, plus we also had Representative Chamberlain joined us even before she was officially a member of the committee as a guest. And it was a really good discussion. We had Dan Davis provide a presentation on school safety issues. We also had Charlotte Forney from the Office of the Ombudsman speak and provide a presentation as well. And it was really helpful to kind of look at what their view of the safety concerns are. We all heard that only 31% of our students feel safe throughout the school day. That's a really visible number that should concern every one of us, that's the case, because it should be 95% of students, not 31% feeling safe throughout the school day. So we're trying to tackle these issues. I mean, one issue that was discussed a lot, Representative Best brought up potential underreporting of bullying. And just strategies and how we combat that. One thing that was raised by the ombudsman presented the difference between conflict versus billing. Conflict is when two students who are relatively equally matched have a conflict over something. It could be the hard foul in a basketball game. It could be a disagreement over something, but there's not a power imbalance there versus bullying where there's a constant issue. What was brought up is maybe the definition of bullying isn't capturing all incidents that people might think of as bullying traditionally. And that's something that we need to explore, I think, in greater detail as we look at this more. And then Representative Colson asked a series of questions along this line too, speaking about the IEPs, how we make sure that we strike the right balance with ensuring individual safety. And then Representative Johnson Law talked about the federal law enforcement presence, making sure students know their rights and how we get the word out there. And she's been taking a leadership role in actions along those lines since that point. And lastly, Representative Chamberlain talked about the gaps in the Safe Passages program, how we close those up and how we continue to improve that work. So it was a really good discussion. I think we want this to be one of the focuses for the fall as to how do we improve that number. I talked about a little bit about getting more data now that we have the federal law enforcement presence, seeing what that looks like, seeing how it's affecting either positively or negatively students' reactions to things, and then just figuring out what we propose, whether it be a resolution, whether it be a report, whether it be legislation, but getting a package together that we have by the end of the fall that we can then submit that actually makes a meaningful difference in this area. So that's the goal of the committee. I also talked a little bit about, and Darren's done a yeoman's job on getting this a draft of this ready for all of us to look at, is just getting the data on where we are with nurse staffing this year. There was a huge transition that occurred this year where staff that was previously employed as contractors by Children's are now going to be DC employees. So our nurses, our allied health techs are going to be DC employees. I think the concern is with any transition, sometimes you have turnover that occurs. And we had 54% of our RNs leave the system last year. So we need to see what that looks like this year. The obvious concern being that under the cluster model, if you don't have enough RNs to staff it, you don't have adequate coverage then of professionals who can't practice under their own license. So I'm very concerned that given the shortage we have, and really given, I think, the lack of progress the city's made on this issue, that we're going to have potentially another drop in terms of nurse coverage. And if that ratio gets much lower, I don't think it's a safe situation, in any stretch to be able to have a nurse covering 6 or 7 schools with professionals that aren't trained to practice on their own. So that's something we're going to double back with a letter. If anybody wants to put comments in a Dropbox on it, I need to give it one last read through, but then we would look to maybe send it out just to get the data to see where we are. And then if it's good news, maybe we haven't lost any more, but if it's troubling news, then we got to figure out what next step is on that. Lastly, Representative Best decided to postpone discussion on the Civics Week to continue to work with people and then make steps to get it in line for next year. But it remains in committee, so we can then at any time we're ready to roll, bring it off the table and then present it to the board. We talked a little bit lastly about doing a student listening session, which I'm really excited about, to hear what students are feeling. Make sure that everybody knows when that is, and we'll invite the whole board to that. But it's just a chance really for students to have 3 minutes to tell us what issues are important to them and what is going right or maybe wrong with their school experience. So that's everything that I have on the committee discussion, but I'm glad to take any questions anybody has. Representative Henderson. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm stealing your job. Sorry.
Okay.
No, sorry.
Conferring with it.
Okay, I apologize. I don't mean to take your role.
It's no longer children's. Who is it centralized under for both sectors?
So it's with DC Health now. So these are direct DC Health employees, is my understanding of it. And that could be a good thing. It could not be. So we'll hopefully see how things have landed. And that's why it's important for us to have the information, see what the staffing ratios are this year. And we'll break it down by profession so we can see, because the allied health professionals and the LPNs can't practice by themselves. They have to practice under the supervision of an RN. And the concern would be is if that number drops again, like it did last year, then you have an RN, instead of covering 4 or 5 schools, they're suddenly covering 6 or 7 schools. And then the question is really, are they covering them at all, or just responding to emergencies? And that's, I think, the situation we're going to be looking at. Sure. Sorry. I'll let you do it. That's the same.
So I just wanted to add to that. I think I don't want to put the words in his mouth, but I believe one of the things we were talking about was bullying and the actual definition of it. And I think Dan Davis spoke to the fact that the definition that's currently used is not what the average person thinks bullying is, and that we should probably reconsider going back to redefining what it is, because this term was, the way that it is structured now was before a lot of the online stuff was taking place. And so a lot of the things that we're seeing as it relates to bullying is not it is not accurately reflected in the numbers that we have. And so thinking of that as a possible direction for us to take some leadership stance.
I apologize for something you, but I agree wholeheartedly. I was trying to be kind. I'm trying to be kind this fall. It's the autumn of kindness. So yes, but I think you described it very accurately, which is, I think, the definition needs to be changed. Yeah. And I was kind of glossing over it, but yeah, he was pretty straightforward about the need to change the definition. And I would love to work with you to figure out how the pendulum gets to the right place.
Vice President, and I'll come right up to you, Mr. Thompson.
And maybe comical too.
But
But
you're going to do your proposal.
no, I have two thoughts. So one, I knew that the responsibility had shifted over to the Department of Health. Do we know why?
I don't, and that's a good question. We can ask that in the letter, why they decided to make this shift. I have been at odds with DC Health about this policy of the cluster model for 6 or 7 years right now, and I don't think we're gonna see a positive change in it because they've been the ones pushing the cluster model. So I'm just deeply troubled. The reaction we got from our school nurses who called us up after we introduced the resolution in the bill, I mean, it was relief, but then also just like, thank you for recognizing how dangerous this is for our students, because like they talk to me, obviously confidentially, but about the mistakes that are being made by health techs who and by LPNs who are not qualified to do these roles. And and I think we need to, obviously money is a big issue, but then also working conditions. Like if you can treat somebody who wanted to join a school community now as basically a traveling EMT, people aren't going to go into school nursing. They want to have a home base, they want to have a school community, they want to get to know their kids, not basically just be driving around in a car to respond to crises all day.
Yeah, I think those issues of like from a professional standpoint are clear to me. I'm like interested in learning more about the barriers that are preventing that more because they've shifted since we last passed the bill. And I think it's important like so are you, in terms of like the data request, what are your thoughts as to how best we can go about that?
I think the good thing is it's the same question, whether they're contract employees or whether they're DC employees, we're asking for coverage ratios in the schools. So it will be the same thing. It's like how many of each profession do you have covering certain things? Like how many, like what's your average coverage that an RN has to do in the cluster model? Like how many schools? Like, so those same questions I think will still be there. And we'll see, maybe there's been a positive change or maybe the opposite, but I think it'll be really important for us to know because then we can figure out what we need to do next.
So, thank you.
Well, it was
Oh,
actually.
do we have an idea of what is like an acceptable ratio? That like if we heard back, hey, and we got the data and it says it's 5, right? Is that from your perspective, or maybe we have to define, is that good, bad, ugly? You know what I mean? Like what does that look like for the committee?
Can I give you a short and long-term answer? So
Yes.
my short-term answer is if we're not significantly worse this year, I'll be relieved. Because we lost 54% of RNs in 1 year last year. So if we have held steady from the year before and we're not increasing the number of schools we're expecting them to cover, I will breathe a sigh of relief for this year. Longer term, though, RNs are the only qualified professionals to be school nurses. LPNs and health technicians are not qualified for those roles. They are designed for health facilities where they are supervised on site by an RN. Like this whole model doesn't make any sense to begin with, and I think it was just put in place to save money. Is they didn't want to pay nurses what they need to get enough nurses. So instead, we're having RNs float around in this cluster model. So for me, getting rid of the cluster model is the ultimate goal. And having an RN who's the only professional who's actually licensed on their own to do this job, that's who we want in our schools with our kids. Because eventually there's going to be a tragedy that occurs that we could prevent through this, and we can see it coming with some of the student testimony we got last year.
Yeah. So thank you. Hey, you don't have to that's me the alternate vote.
Yeah.
Kids also on Thursday on Monday. I guess what is helpful is what I hear you saying, which is currently is about 4 or 5. And you would be surprised if we are still at 4. What you are saying is probably disastrous. And you are expecting a ratio much higher than 4 or 5. So the ratio we're looking for the immediate term is 4 to 5 because that's what had been promised. Not that that's what we want, but like that would be. And actually, right now will probably be a.
Yeah, if it's not worse, I will be pleasantly surprised. But I've given up trying to make predictions at this point. So I guess we'll just see what the data shows, and then maybe it's good news. I mean, if it is the same as last year, that's still not a safe situation.
Right.
But it's not something where I'd start ringing alarm bells. I think we can then try to think strategically and proactively about how we recruit more nurses, but we don't need to be alarmed Like that we basically, if we find out it's 5 or 6 schools that we have an RN covering.
Sharing.
I think it was 3 to 4, and maybe I was, and it depends on, yeah, it depends on the size of the school. So I don't want to misinform you because it depends on how you measure it. So if you're averaging the students, that's one thing. Because like you may have several schools together where you have a nurse covering that are close by in smaller schools. But then some schools will have their own dedicated nurse. So like it really depends on how you run the data, if you divide it by students or if you divide it by the number of schools. So I can get you both the, like kind of what the range would be, and it won't be like it's going to be different based on the size of the populations. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
That makes sense. What it, and what if it is significantly worse to me,
Yeah.
we all share. Understanding where we are versus where we were.
Yeah.
Instead of us making our own
That's-
assumptions of what is.
Yeah.
Better or worse.
Absolutely. That's the goal. So we'll get you that.
Thank you very much. Deputy Director.
Yes, so my question is, since the original letter came from the full board, and so now the committee is thinking about updating and retransmitting, what are the next steps on the.
Well, I would turn to both of you for your guidance on it. I mean, my goal would be, I mean, Darren's provided a great draft of it that he's put out there. I need to proofread it one last time. Would the appropriate protocol be to, after everybody's gotten a chance to review it, like to vote it out today? Or would it be to, I mean, that's not something we would take action at a public meeting on. It would seem to be like just invite people to sign on.
Yeah, you just need, you can invite people to sign. And once members have had the chance to review the draft as well, after comments and feedback, and then Darren can finalizing it.
Yeah.
And then if you have a majority of members support, then
Okay.
you can resend it.
Yeah, and I'm open to any suggestions in the letter. There's no pride of authorship on this. I think our goal really is just maybe in the next week to try to get something out. So we can find out. And I haven't been in a rush to do it yet because I wanted to let the schools get settled so that they know what their staffing is and that they've got everything kind of in a firm posture before we ask for the data. Question over here?
Hold on a second.
Sorry. I'll stop doing that. I'm sorry.
Johnson Law was next, and then I'll come right back.
So we're just taking this all their fault. Whole story. I'm good. It's just for the public watching.
And I would second that.
Yeah.
DC Health is as much or more to blame than anyone else. So.
All right.
I just wanted to say to get on here to sit down with students of their experience, not only within school, but also like around their school surrounding area, because I definitely feel like with everything that is going on, especially with the huge transition for high school students going on, it's definitely a good idea because I think by the end of this year, the number that you mentioned of students feeling safe in school, from what I see right now, I feel like that number is definitely going to go down. Not only because of, the Southern ban going, but also it's a lot of violence in schools that are happening in my views only the first week and a half. I know specifically at my schools, but especially a lot of students do not feel safe at all. And I do know amongst the senior class as well that attendance numbers are dropping and it's only the middle of the second week of school. So I wanted to say that I definitely do believe that that is a good idea, and I wish to get a confirmed date for that out of as soon as possible so I can spread the word.
And I think we have a date, the date for this.
The student listening session's gonna be?
October 8th.
October 8th. So we have a date and I mean, I think it's going to be a wonderful opportunity. I used to work for Vince Gray, who was chair of the council, and he did a student listening session. He was chair of the committee of the whole, and basically any student, any youth could come in and have 3 minutes to talk about any issue. And we're going to talk specifically about education issues since we're the State Board of Ed, but I think it'll be a great opportunity. I think what you'll find when you go to the Student Advisory Committee is since we've had such so many students interested in it, oftentimes we don't, you'll have trouble keeping them all involved. So it's a chance for everybody, and if we have 40, 50 kids, for them to be able to come in and then talk about an issue that you might not have a chance to fully discuss at each meeting. So I'm excited about it. And I can't wait to work with you in SAC.
Thank you. Now I'm gonna come to our Vice President Williams.
Yeah, the other issue that was being talked about, like, with bullying, similar to kind of what you were saying, I was curious if any of the students, based on like your current thoughts or interests, or just your previous experience with supervisor committee, if you think that there would be a willingness for, to talk about that issue, figure out what specific, like, areas of that problem we could tackle to, like, make things more effective. With regards to school safety, one thing I would flag that I think we can use guidance on too is when the youth bullying prevention law was written, it did not include like issues of social media. So like all that stuff is like we're kind of behind the on, and we could use the student perspective on what could actually be helpful. So I'm curious if you think there would be interest within the student advisory committee.
But yeah, I think that definitely. Well, a lot of like when we did 2 weeks ago, we had that presentation, and initially it just felt like regular bullying, like putting a kid in the locker type, but it's obviously more nuanced than that, and I think talking about the definition in a way that's contextual to how like kids now experience it, and not just like an 80s high school movie, would be good. And also I think but the thing is, I also got a briefing on cyberbullying and what that looks like, but I also think it's very like stock image type, like somebody sending you a mean message, and I think a lot of the forms can be more insidious than that, and I think getting a good, like, well-rounded kind of discussion on that would definitely be possible. Yes.
I'm looking forward to we'll have 1 or 2 members on our thing. So I can't wait to representative.
Thank you. I have 2 thoughts. I agree with you on that. I know my school definitely, we've had an incident. We had a student who's since graduated. They were a pretty persistent cyber bullier. And so they began having, lessons on cyberbullying, but I think a lot of school administrations at this point don't know how to uniformly punish cyberbullying. Because, I mean, when you look at chapter 25, it can be like, oh, it was harassment, it was verbal harassment, but was it really? Can we determine? Because there's a lot of anonymity online at this point where a lot of bullying happens through confessions accounts. So I think definitely my second thought is we should incorporate that into our agenda for one of the upcoming SAC meetings. Because I think if we want this to be fixed or changed by next school year, we should get a conversation started as early as possible.
Just to add on, I also think it does complicate things when most of like the cyberbullying obviously is online outside of school. It becomes a question of how to accurately or like effectively target the issue while still acknowledging that it wasn't like necessarily on school grounds. So figuring out how to approach that is something we should focus on as well.
One thing we see is whether we have a code of conduct and something like this, and is there a student code of conduct? Should we have one? And then what it could be is if you're harassing students, if you're targeting them outside off school grounds, it's a violation of the code of conduct, and that could subject you to disciplinary action. I'm not sure how that's done right now, but what I really, this is exactly what I've heard from parents, is that students don't get a break anymore. Is they get bullied at school and then they go home and it continues online. And that's even worse in a lot of ways because you don't feel like you got any safe spot. You go home and you're just subjected to it there too, from somebody who's bullying you in the school too.
This code of conduct uniform, like for all schools.
I think we just gotta think it through. I don't have, I just, I kind of want to approach this with an open book and really to learn from you all, because I think you brought it up accurately, is talking about like it's not occurring like an eighties movie, that I'm a child of the eighties. I have the Gen X perspective, and you have the perspective on the ground right now, which is gonna be what's really helpful, because you can tell us what's really a problem versus what's a perceived problem. So I really think this will be a good working relationship that we can have to get something that actually makes a difference.
Representative Thompson, you close it out. All right, thanks everyone. Actually for filling in a lot of the times since we didn't have honestly, we needed some good debate, so I appreciate that report and debate around it. With that being done, we'll now move to our external committee updates if there's any that someone wants to share at this particular time. It's been summer, and so a lot of meetings were kind of like not happening. We have a lot going on, so I don't see anybody wanting to report on any external committees.
Sorry. Yeah. My two has the some committees, my family constituted act. I think last time I gave a pretty detailed update about the community schools that meets every other month. And so I do not have another update from the community schools folks, but it's only because it meets every other month. I will remind folks that October 1 starts the new fiscal year. And so we were able to get 1 year of funding for the community schools, but the ideal is multi-year funding because obvious reasons. And so that is something that I expect the committee will want to do ongoing education and advocacy around, because we are trying to do a better job of explaining to the mayor and the council what it means to have a community school, why it actually aligns with our goals as a city, and move to, again, multi-year funding. We suspect that actually the way the statute is written, that they should be doing that anyway, but we'll just add that to our education. So that's my update.
Thank you so much. With all committee meetings being reported on, we have an option for a break, but we are moving pretty quickly. So I'm gonna make an executive decision and say that we don't take a break, and that we can continue through and move to our new business, and we can move forward.
May I add 2 items to the new business?
We're gonna get there.
Okay.
One sec. Thank you, sir. Hey. As I was saying, we will now move to new business. I would like to ask members if they would like to add anything to the list. So now you're alone. I didn't have your name down here as the first person. Well, let me read first what we have. We have draft 2026. We have SR 25-11, appointing student representatives to ad hoc committee. We have NASB conference update, and then Representative Goulet, I did have a space for you already to say that you wanted to ask.
Yes, so 2 things. One, I want to discuss the process for ensuring that we have food for the students. I'll go through that when we get to the item, but just the process for purchasing food. The second would be the transmission of the state board authority legislation. So it'd be the motion to transmit the state board authority legislation to council.
Was there others? Yes.
It should be a letter, but I want to discuss, the members of the board are sending recommendations around the federalization as it stands, and how we can do a better job of supporting folks in the education space. I'll give more context to that and get to it. Not that you all are familiar with what's going on outside, but I have a couple of things that I think could be helpful.
Okay, so it's a letter on federalization.
Sure.
All right. Were there others? I also want to add one. I was contacted by the Charter Alliance. They are having a student, let me start with it. Student. A virtual student safety, training, what they're having is coming up in well, next week actually. And they've asked if we would like to partner with them. They're also partnering with, the PCSB, our mirror folks on the charter side board. And so they have basically a flyer that kind of speaks to it, which I can share. But they were just wondering, do we want to partner? That's basically. So I'll speak to it. This is the Charter Alliance. So I'll speak to it at that particular time, but that's the other one for our legitimate. So with that being, we have those items listed. We will now proceed. And the first is on that is the draft 2026 meeting schedule. Deputy Director and will speak to it.
So I'll give a quick introduction, but Evie really took the lead on this, so look for her to chime in. But as members know, every year you vote on the meeting schedule for the following calendar year. And we tend to do it around this time, for many reasons, but also so we can reserve the rooms and just get everything noticed. So with that, if there's not a lot of surprises, but I will turn over to Katie.
Yeah, as Jen said, not a lot of surprises. Most of them are just shifted by one day from this year. The one thing for January we might have to update is if we're still in this space and not back at 441, the location we might have to update, but we'll know about that a little bit closer too. In February, the 18th, when looking at different holidays, it's Ash Wednesday and it's also the potential or tentative start of Ramadan. So often we'll switch it to the Tuesday before, but that Tuesday before is also the Lunar New Year. So our suggestion is to potentially move that to the following week on February 25th. But open to suggestions on that. Any comments?
And then comments are there that would probably, when we reviewed asking.
I would say, as Catholic, I don't remember us ever moving our meeting for Ash Wednesday. Maybe we move it for Ramadan. I will also say, as a Catholic, I go to church every time. So I tend to go, seriously, that's, that is the beauty of being part of such a large institution. So I can go to church from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. to get ashes. If it's a matter of, folks wanting to observe Lunar New Year, like if that causes a conflict, I cannot speak to what that means for Ramadan, especially with the fasting situation. So I can see that being the issue. But if it comes down to it,
It would be the start of Ramadan, not Eid, which is generally, I think, like the bigger holiday which is at the end of Ramadan. But I just wanted to flag it for anybody's, since that's the public meeting, it's not just the working session. That's yeah.
Participating in the meeting. I was moving out the meeting, because especially, I look for a lot of people, it's kind of hard the first day because, you have to have that mindset, you're fasting all day. The one good thing I will say about it being the beginning of Ramadan, being in February, so the sun goes down faster. But with that also happening, I had a question about if the sun has gone down while a meeting is in progress, what would be the situation with breaking fast during?
could you say more?
Because usually, so the entire thing of Ramadan, so we don't eat. Well, I don't think I will be participating in Ramadan this year. But you don't eat from when I believe it's 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes before the sun comes up, and then after the last, twilight, you know, after the sun goes below the horizon, then we begin to eat. And usually in February, the sun goes down around 5:30-ish. And looking at the time frame of it being 5:30, I'm thinking it would be conflicts with you know, people trying to break their fast and then also trying to be en route to the meeting.
It's also a tentative start of Ramadan. I know, like, it's dependent on like the moon, and also different sects, I think, to with whenever the religious leader sees it, like if it's cloudy, it doesn't, they might move it to the next day, they have to like see it. So we don't know exactly what day Ramadan will be established as starting, but for the calendar, that's the potential start of it.
And
But
also free to your point. I don't know exactly what some people plan to have. They break the plan. Just so everyone knows, we do some people, so to speak, in the meetings, yeah, that would not be a problem. You know, if you brought something to snack on, that can be done, you know, quietly and easily within a meeting. That's not a problem. That's never been a problem because people do that both here in the working meeting and at the regular sessions.
Yeah, I would definitely say, if you're working fast, you as some, they do things prepared, I would say, like their first of the day.
Right.
But like for me, for example, previous years are at versus maybe I usually just bring like that's a snack bag with me and a bottle of water and bring a fast of water.
And that's totally allowed that we do that here. So that's not a problem.
No, that was not, when I say things, say more on it. Then you have things specifically. Chambers and.
I was just,
And so it sounds.
yeah, I just wanted to change the last station.
Yeah. Thank you. Was there anything else for this draft schedule, meeting schedule? Yes, all the time, just the
August, I think maybe the times are flipped, I don't know if it's intentional or just.
We'll fix that. Yeah.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think.
You're correct. It should be that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So group members voting on this at the public meeting in 2 weeks. What is the decision on the February public meetings?
I would say listening to the comments from both our Catholic and Islamic persons, both on it, that we just have already, just go ahead and have our Wednesday meeting as scheduled. They both have stated that accommodations can be paid for that.
And then do people feel good with moving the public meeting in April to after DCBS's spring break as opposed to? I guess it couldn't be before, right?
I think this is based on what we did this year.
Yeah, because it'd be like the 1st and the 8th if we did that, and then we wouldn't meet again for 4 weeks. So I'm in favor of keeping it as the 22nd.
I may be the only person on this, but I'm just gonna throw out this perspective. I still prefer the August to be the month off. And July to have a month there. I just feel like August is the dead month and it's hard to get people together for anything during August, but. I'm probably the only one who feels that way, but if there's anybody else who preferred the old way we did it, then they can also speak up. But
August is a Bria's birthday too. People are taking trips and why is it July? Or is it because August?
that was the theory, is that we moved it because August was, August is when you started back with school, but I think like everybody's getting in last minute travel, so there was not this influx of people that we theorized coming in to talk to us about school readiness issues, those last few days. I just think people were getting their own youth ready. I had more requests, frankly, in July, about school readiness because there was still a chance to affect that at that point. So yeah, I don't know. That's just my personal opinion. If we were taking a majority, I would vote to have our session in July and then take the August public meeting off. But that's one person's preference and maybe two people's preferences. Okay. I don't know if anybody else feels that way.
I will, Vice President Williams.
Sure, so I recognizing that you were newer to the board, we had made the change, I had made the recommendation previous year. For a couple of reasons, one, our July meetings typically was like the lowest amount of like public participation. And no one was there and it was like already summer for everyone in terms of the school system. And then two was then by not having something in August, we weren't able to meet until September when school had already started. So by the time people were ready for school, like to begin, we thought it would be better to have something in August so that as people are coming back to school, we can hear from the public and hear about the issues and still contact DGS and do all the things that we need to do before the school year starts, rather than having a big gap from July to September. And that was the rationale there.
And I will say that I'm also in agreement with that. The reason why we changed it to July. It seems to work for the majority. I will say again, of course, I cannot stop people going to put a motion forward to change.
I did not do both.
But I would say that I don't think that motion is fair because I think the majority of the individuals kind of like it the way it is.
Yeah, this was more of a dip your toe in the water with an informal polling of people's faces, and I appreciate my word colleague here, and good job. I will now move in the middle.
So I hope you'll take your toe out and you get one toe.
It's okay. Take your.
Thank you both for that.
Appreciate that.
We look forward to seeing this, seeing it at the. Okay. Now we will move to the next items as R 25-11 appointed to representatives to the ad hoc committees. Members, you have inside your package the resolution to look at. We appoint all representatives and student representatives to committees via state resolution. The purpose of this resolution is to appoint student representatives to the ad hoc committees they have chosen to serve on. Members, are there any comments or questions about this draft resolution? And I will say, as you'll see in there, specifically speaking to Representative Soule, that there's a member who is joining that you requested earlier, that is joining the committee, your committee, sir.
Thank you.
In that resolution.
It's a recruiting drive.
Yeah.
We'll hopefully get
Okay.
others too.
So I just wanted to state that that is
Thank you.
part of that resolution.
We're thrilled to have her with us.
So
Thank
if
you.
you would like to review quickly, and then if you have any questions or anything like that, or any state, that's future. Are there? Looking around, seeing nothing but smiles at this point, especially from our student representatives who are, ready to join their committees. All right. We look forward to seeing it in the public meeting and voting on it. Okay, next we have a NASB conference update from our deputy director.
Sure, so President Patterson had asked that we have this, just for another brief update, but first of all, the DC State Board of Education is featured in NASB's new issue of the state education standard. An article co-authored by our executive director, Butler, and her former student representative, Anna Mayer. So please read it, members. It'll be in the roundup too. And I also want to shout out Andrew Roof, of course, our public information officer, who always does an amazing job with all of the work promoting everything that you all and the agency does, and that's inclusive of this and publications. So we are very happy to be accepted into the publication as well. It was not a guarantee. And for the annual conference coming up in October in Austin, our session, which is also related to the standard article on elevating student voice in policymaking, was also accepted. So, yeah, we're excited about That will be co-presenting the National Student Board Member Association, and that will be led by Dr. Darren Fleischer, of course, who leads all of the student advisory. I'll be there co-presenting technically, but he's really in lead of it all, so thank you, Darren, for that. And we are expecting 5 members to join us for the conference. Anything else, Mr. President?
No, there's not any comments for this update. Representative Johnson Law.
When did we get to the 5? Oh, yeah, our board leadership is going, Representative Johnson Law, Representative Colson expressed interest, and Representative Best.
Representative Williams.
Based on the schedule of the conference, there are also 2 sessions on artificial intelligence in schools, so we can fully expect Representative Best to come back with ample solutions for
Our recommendations.
and recommendations for the additional funding.
Thank you. All right, I see no other questions or comments. I'm gonna move to the next item, that was added by Representative Boulay. And it's concerning food at the meetings, at the SAC meetings, I believe.
Yes, so, we've had to, I think it's really important that we feed our students at these meetings. They're coming off school, I think the pizza's been a good thing.
Miles, students.
Yeah, I mean, members have been dipping into their own pockets to do this. Now, what I was trying to get accomplished was to get language added to the local budget act that would allow us to directly have an amount like the OHE does, like council does, like the mayor does, to just spend directly on food. That wouldn't have been new money, but it would have been just an authority to spend directly on food, which you need to have specifically authorized. That language did unfortunately not get included in the local budget act, so that is disappointing. I hope you can raise that with Chairman Mendelson. I don't know why he didn't put it in, but it didn't get included. So what I would like to propose doing is, I've used, each of us get the allotment for constituent funds. There's needs across the city. My ward doesn't have the same level of needs for backpacks or other supplies that I know some members use that for. What I've done in the past is donated some of the money back to our SBOE staff for NPS supplies, materials, and things like that, because that then serves citywide. I would like to find a way to use the funds, though, to cover the food needs for the entire year. And then also to get supplies or other materials. I think there's a number of ways to do it that are lawful. But if there's anyone who's got suggestions on that, let me know. But we got to move quickly on it because I don't want the money to lapse. And I want to be able to use it to cover SAC expenses for the entire year. So is this something maybe I should talk to you about, or Bernice? Jen, what's the?
Yes, I know you and I talked about looping in Roma Battle, who leads our budget, which I haven't done yet.
That's okay.
But it will do, because you definitely be able to help figure that out with you.
I know there are a number of legal ways to do it. I certainly want to make sure we're complying with all federal procurement law. But we just have to be precise in how we do it. So I'll connect with Roma and we'll make sure we get that done.
What I'll say is I'm supportive of that, as long as proof, legally that we can do that. Definitely want to make sure that we have food. I know this has been something that we've tried to contribute, but we've missed things. Dr. Fleischer has had to come out of pocket. He wants to make sure that our students coming directly from school do have that opportunity to eat and everything. I think it's unfair to have here at a certain time right after school and don't feed them at all. So if there's all legal means to do this, I support you on this. We'll work with the staff to make sure that we find a way somehow. Okay.
I believe I've found a way, so we just gotta make sure we work together.
All right. Other comments on this issue? Representative Thompson?
One thing I did not realize is that the request actually came to put it in the estate and didn't make it into the data set. Is that right?
my understanding was Executive Director Butler was going to take, it's not the BSA, it'd be the Local Budget Act. So in the Local Budget Act, each year they have a line item for each of the agencies that's right after the agency budget number that then directs a certain amount of money be available for food expenses for official receptions and things like that. And it's just really authorizing language to do it directly. Now, I believe since we didn't get that in there, which would have been just easier, I think there's another way to do it if we have it for training purposes. So like there's always an element of training that goes on with Dr. Fleischer at these meetings with our students. He prepares them to do this. So I think we just, as long as that's listed formally on the agenda, there's a training item on there. I actually think it meets that requirement because otherwise our students really can't get the full benefit of what they're learning at the SAC. So I'll work kind of about the direct language we need to put on the agenda there to make sure that qualifies, but I think it does meet the requirements for like training purposes.
Okay, so that's, I think that needs some question, because when you talked about, like the open meetings language, is that because that is how council is able to pay for funds, and you're not? Because I know some, you know, like council purchases, like when they have the breakfast and things like that, when we've had the, you know, joint sessions in the past, we've been doing that. I would say that for training purposes, even our retreats, we have a huge amount of difficulty with those requests, which are clearly training, right? Like they are for no other purpose in training, so where we can go to meeting. They still a lot of times won't approve our requests. And so I think I'm completely supportive of that here. And I remember we had a conversation, I guess the most of this about how maybe we need to look at a couple of different remedies. Because even though things make sense and are simple in the world, we also have to sometimes have a couple different paths and just to actually get the thing done. And I'm gonna get
I think we do have a backup plan too, which would be to get some sort of purchase card or gift card or something, and then hire somebody to provide it. There's ways you can do this where you're hiring a vendor through that. I would like to do it the more direct way. But if we do get pushback from OCP on it, there's another way we could do it. I just want to make sure the money doesn't lapse. That's my number one concern. And
what we have requested, that look at those things over time and why we have either been successful or not. And even cases where sometimes it's the exact same language and we might be successful here and not successful there, so that we can practice this.
all right, I would love to partner with you on this, because your experience on it would be helpful.
Sure. Thank you.
Was that?
I said, I'll join in that.
And with you as well.
Learn a little bit more about it to make sure that. Other comments?
Yeah,
Yes, Representative Benson.
I'll just say, like, I know that I used like the bulk of my funds already, but I didn't get it to exactly, so whatever the.
You was absent.
Send them on.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no other comments or questions, I'm gonna move to board authority legislation, and I'm gonna come back to you. Then go ahead.
Yeah, so I apologize due to the new bike lane that they've constructed on Arizona Avenue that causes traffic to back up every day in my neighborhood. It took me an hour and 45 minutes to get in here for the public meeting. So I was not able to move the language off the table, which was just simply to transmit the legislation that we had to council. So I'm bringing it up just so it can be agendized again today. I don't think we need to have prolonged discussion about this. And I think the real goal here with this legislation is really to continue discussion. There's a bill that's already been proposed. We want to have the proposal that the state board has put forward out there. Representative Williams has circulated some amendments. Members now have had a chance to review those. I think that was important. It's given us more time to look at what he's proposed. And then we'll have an opportunity to hopefully send this to council. I don't think it's going to create any waves right now. No one's really focused on this issue, and the changes are not that dramatic. I think the most important one that we have, though, is requesting data. And if we hopefully we'll continue to get data in a way that is timely. But if we don't, I think it's important to have a mechanism to be able to get that data because it allows us to do our jobs in a way that's effective. So I don't view this as anything that's revolutionary. It's really just if there's a hearing scheduled to really have our proposal then be part of that hearing. And so people can come and speak about it. And and then if anybody wants to work in the next 2 weeks with Representative Williams, myself on either his amendments or the final version of it, I'd love to do that. So I'm glad to take questions now, but my motion would be to then move to put this. I don't know if I need to formally move it, but there's a standard item on there.
Right.
But I think the reason I put it on this agenda is I think there has to be discussion of an item to advance it at the next public meeting. So I don't think we need to vote to put it on there. I think because it's stuck on the table. So I think under Roberts, what we have to do is discuss it today to check the box because we're required to discuss it at the prior public meeting. But then I think there's a standard item on the agenda to remove things from the table. So at that time, I would remove to take it from the table.
So I try to use my training that I took, that was suggested to me. And what I'll say is that, no, we don't have to vote on it at this particular time. There is a statement that was prepared to go last time, that we did not take up. It's at the very beginning of the agenda. So we don't have to vote to put it on the agenda. That's all. We do have to take the opportunity and during the script to bring it back up. And that's what we are
doing now.
We'll do that. Again, I want to reiterate that I appreciate all the hard work that's gone to this. This has been a long time coming. I think we have been more than sensitive as a body to all the things that have happened, that's happening, verifications and all the comments, and trying to be good partners with the educational arena who may have had concerns at what time it came up. But I do believe, personally, I can speak for only myself, and I hope there are other members that it is time that we do bring it back up and that we do have votes on it. So that's my statement. There are others.
Procedural question, so I know that the person made the motion to put it back on the table.
Not the second. I think the other everyone. Yeah.
I think we should.
I will get the answer for you, but I'm saying I don't believe it does. But I will get the clarification for you. I will get the clarification. Other comments? All right, thank you. We'll come to you, Representative Thompson, for a matter about federal organization.
Yeah, so I think a couple of things. So you all know my sense of time has been gone since COVID, so I couldn't tell you if it was last week, I couldn't tell you if it was the week before. But myself and our education council, we hosted a meeting for folks to talk about their experience with federalization. So that was the second day of school. We thought it was important to actually give people a chance to just have an experience and share back instead of, projecting on what the experience would be. We wanted some feedback. We did have our former staffer, Bill Copeland, who was there from DME. We also had our chief student advocate, Dan Davis on the panel, and then Tia Bell from the Trigger Project. The reason those panelists were chosen is for the following reasons. One, of course, the DME can see across sectors and is privy to information that is being shared with schools around protocols and procedures. And so what we could or what Phil was able to share with the public, we thought it was important to share with regards to things like questions around ICE, questions around, like I've had some schools in particular who have reported that there have been staging in their property. folks wanted to know, and I thought it was important to say, hey, if they actually are not cooperating, but it's a public space. So if we let your kids play on the playground, then unfortunately, if the National Guard pulls up, they also can pull up on the playground, right? So just to kind of give people a sense of what information we do have. Dan was able to speak to a lot of the questions around transportation and safe passage that folks have, not just with like where and what does that mean, but also like there are some emergency ways to get on these lists that I was not familiar with. We shared all that information out. And then Tia has done excellent work with kind of several rounds of conversations with young people and like what their realities are and how they're responding to some of the information that's being shared with them, because it's not always what we would expect. And so I think the framing I really appreciate from her is like not just like, yes, we want to tell people to know their rights, but we also have to understand the realities of how people what experience our city every day, and why they're making the decisions they're making. Because if you just tell them, hey, here's what you need to do when you get arrested, that's not sufficient. There's some stuff we got to do before that. So I think there were a few things that came out of that of course are helpful to we're 7 residents and we shared out information, but I think are actually pretty important, would be important like across the city. So one, and actually had a constituent who I know email me separately, was not at that meeting. One is actually around virtual learning. So I don't think that folks realize that we actually do have some flexibility built into the attendance regulations, which this board actually passed during COVID. I think that is actually really important for students who have, for us, communities who have large immigrant populations who are being targeted at the moment, and just their ability to feel safe. I have had the experience, first day of school, walking to my neighborhood school to go to the clap-in, running into the principal because she was actually walking the opposite direction because ICE was reported in my neighborhood. We do have Salvadorians at Ward 7-2. They've been there for years and years and everybody knows it. And we were worried that our kids weren't going to come to school. So she's coming down to see if that report was accurate and if we needed to walk kids to school or not. And so I'm already anticipating this people will not be showing up. I would like us to think carefully about if there are things we can put in place with regards to virtual instruction where appropriate, not by and large. We don't want to see huge COVID losses and all the things, but that do actually make sure our kids are receiving instruction and not just opting out altogether due to just the climate that we're in. I think that is our responsibility and it's something that is not purview as a board. 2, I think that we need to make some recommendations around safe passage, whether it be, I don't know if we want to talk about nobody has money for emergency funding or some type of project or something that fills in the gaps. I've really appreciated a lot of the volunteer organizations who have been supporting kids with like walking to and from metros and all the different things. But I can tell you, as somebody who stood up in like a community emergency response during COVID, it falls apart if folks don't have the supports that they need. Like we were able, fortunately, to like raise some money, get some seed funding, like put some stuff in place. And we thought it was going to be, I was like, oh, I just think, I'm not gonna tell you about how I thought about going to get my nails done. And I was like, oh, I should be back next set. It should be good. Lies, right? The world shut down. And so 6 months later, we were still delivering meals to people. But I do think there's something that we need to suggest as a board around safe passage for our young people in the city, actually stepping up to support certain things, especially because we are getting reports that our education professionals are actually being turned away in some circumstances. I know some of them have gone and have, this is not new. They have gone in the past, being down on the platform. They are now being told by WMATA and others that they can't do that, all these different things, right? 3, I think just a certain amount of information is important. And so some of the things around like letting folks know about like the staging and the ground, some of the stuff for the OAG's office, just like saying that should be put in a visible place so folks can access. People don't know, I know to go to the Attorney General's website to get the guidance. But at this moment in particular, trying to figure out where to go get information, honestly just seems foolish. I think clarity is kindness. And there are some things that we as a city need to do and be better about with communication. And so I am going to share the notes from that and kind of list out some of the recommendations, but those are some of the ones that were at top of mind for me. And I think I'm hoping that we can talk about as a board. One of the reasons I'm suggesting a letter in particular is because while I understand we can pass resolutions, I'm not suggesting that we don't pass a resolution, but I also believe that you need to have another tool in your toolkit. I think we can send a letter quickly. I think then if we don't get a response or whatever else, then we can come back in October and pass a resolution, or if we hear, we can also therefore we can also share out at the public meeting, like here are our recommendations, like you can make a letter with all the things. And maybe at a public meeting, get some feedback and some additional information. And then in October, if we want to pass a formal resolution, we can pass a formal resolution and look for other avenues. But I do think expediency is important, given, I would say especially that similar to me at the beginning of COVID, thinking, you know, I'm gonna go get my nails done again. We are looking at a situation where this could be extended. Whether by Congress or some other arrangements that we are not privy to. And I think we just have to be honest about our reality. And we should use our powers to do what we can to say, hey, here's what we believe is helpful and good for all kids.
I'm looking around for comments.
I'll be brief. I think generally I support everything you said. I think it seems that it's like the least we could do. Because I think more needs to be done on top of that you know, the threats to many parts of the fabric of our community are at stake right now. So I think we should figure that out and try to leverage our role effectively. And I think it's also something that will be a continued conversation at our upcoming retreat. And I like how you based it in like real situations, because there's many other real situations that I think we can also use our knowledge of what's happening throughout our city to help provide some clarity to families and students.
Representative Johnson.
I don't know if those like looked at their emails, but I know John person said something else. It's like a really great visual. It's not their town. It's their public schools, it's not the school board, but it's something that has like immigration supports for like students and families. So even if it's not like a particular letter, or if maybe it's like a letter and like one pager or something about, you know, like knowing your rights. I mean, it's like a whole website, Aaron. And so I know Andrew was like, we are not about to do a whole website. Maybe if it's even like a one pager, for like a visual from us to say, hey, here are some real tangible things, right? Like, yes, this is what we believe, but here are some tangible things that we've gotten, what we've looked into from research and different things of that nature. You probably can't see it, but I'm just looking at it and just making sure it's family friendly, so we can actually help our families here.
You're suggesting that we have something designed in addition to the.
Honestly, I say yes, because when this letter goes out, like it's like exactly who is this letter going to be directed to? Is it going to direct it to like the public as public facing? Are we sending this letter to just like the mayor and to others? Because again, as we stated, we're talking about families and students. So what if this body helps to create something for families and students in real time?
Yeah, so if I made an assumption, and maybe I should be more specific. So when we tend to send a letter from the board, it is a communication to other government entities and agencies. And so we should decide based on what's in there, who the appropriate ones are. So like if it's a expansion of safe passage request, my assumption would that would be to go to the DME, right? And we would include them in there. If it is I don't know, I can't remember what with the virtual part, we would include ASU, right? Because ASU makes, so we would do the recommendations, but when I say, and I should, and because I know folks watch this as well, so I'll make sure to be more clear in the future. But when I say like we should send a letter from the board, I mean to other government agencies to say, hey, education partners, and I use that loosely because we know we have many different entities that touch public education in the city. We as the state board believe these are things that our city needs to put in place to support folks. And of course, like if somebody wants to write about that, or if we want to post it publicly so folks know what we are communicating, those are good things too. But our call to action is to our fellow city officials to say, hey, here's what we need to do and what we need to put in place. Now, there are some resources that are available, but they are also maybe not the most readily accessible. So when I mentioned like the OAG's guidance around schools interactions with ICE in particular, that is something that has been available for months. And folks don't know it. And it is posted on the OAG's website. Right. And I know as someone who is overly, we can call it, nosy or, we'll do whatever. I know that exists and I can go to find it. But why in a time where that is something that is a regular question that is at the top of people's minds every day, is that not more readily acceptable? And it's not top secret information that would be like, we don't want to say this. So it's literally like, hey, if an agent shows up at a school, like actually you don't have to do X, Y, and Z, right? And so families know that, so teachers know that, right? So that's why I asked, are we talking about in addition to, because there are some things that maybe are not, because there are several things that might not have been created or captured, or maybe we can compile, but then there are things that literally, like the city needs to step up and do, and some things that the city actually has, which are kind of hidden. And I'm not assigning what do you call intent to that. I'm literally just giving my assessment because I know back in the spring, I said to folks, this is available. I sent it out, all the things, and I'm still getting questions in what is now past Labor Day. Do we have guidance around this?
So I think in response to that, I'm gonna say yes, and maybe it's because I'm a newbie, maybe it's because I'm a mom. But I am pushing this board to go beyond letter sending. Like, if we all could pull up the website from Dr. Colson, if you have your computers or your phones, it would be most helpful. But to give, even if it's a visual that we could all share, to something where it's like, even if we like take you to something to be like, here, know your rights and everything you just mentioned, maybe it's like a toolkit or something. But I think we are at a point where people are asking us to do more. And to your point about the OAG, what if we just took that information and just made a cute, like, visual? Again, family, know your rights. So lovely. Oh, look, it's blooming. Make it, we can all send it out and we can all put it on our social medias. We can ask the students to like send it out and just like really blast it, right? In addition, again, to the letter sending, because I think the things that we do behind the scenes, sometimes, a lot of times, like you said, people don't know that we're doing all the stuff that we're doing. Sometimes all people see is, well, what are you sharing now? What are you putting in your newsletter? What's on social media? Where do I like physically tangible can like see you and like touch you? So I'm wondering if we could also do something for the people that elected us as well, for them to see in addition to working with our government partners. And if that's too much work, then I just need everyone to see something.
I don't know. So I'm not suggesting it's too much work. And I don't. And I hope you're not suggesting that I said it was too much work. I am more so trying to because I think you asked, what are we doing and who are we doing with, right? And I took the time to explain exactly what I meant. And I was sincere when I said, are we talking about yes and?
Yes, and. I think it's yes, and I think we should be doing more. I think this body has an obligation to do just a little bit.
Because I just, and I think it's really important that in this time, as we're figuring things out, because this is like, we can be nice about the language and all the things, but like, we're literally in the middle of a fascist takeover.
Yes.
So I would like to assume that everybody on this board is putting ideas on top of. And so I kind of have a visceral reaction to if that's too much work, especially given the amount of work that I know people do in this. And so I just want to make sure that we're on the same page, that it's like a yes, and we should do everything that we can do, not like a belittling of other approaches or certain approaches, or even a hint that people don't want to do certain things because there's just a question for clarity.
No, I don't think it's that. I think I'm pushing us to do more. Like it's time for more. We're in a fascist takeover. There's a lot happening. It's an emergency, and that requires us to do more. Completely.
What I'll say, about this. I'm Peter. I appreciate everything, first process, so to speak, them, because there's so many things, not that you want at first, the letter. I know there are LEAs when we speak to like the virtual environment. As you said, there are LEAs on both sides of the that still have some of those capabilities that are still in place.
Yes.
I know that friendship still has a whole school. I know that still have room in their capacity to move kids from in and out, depending on what the situation is. And we're in a dark situation where we need to add to that, and that is a resource that should be made available, and then we just say, you know, the entities that have control over those and the caps of those, stuff like that, should open those up and make those available to those students who feel that they need a state of particular part. Also, in being a parent and having my children go through what I agree again, there, because there was literally during this first week of the first week last week, where they were actually stopping people from school, black parents and everything like that. And so much happened on those platforms on how they treated children. My kids ride the green line to the red line and then get DuPont circle and get on the bus. So they're in all these spaces where all these other intimidating forces are, and they feel some kind of way that came on, and they told me. And they didn't have anybody there to speak up for them or anything like that. So there needs to be some type of thought process around leaders and things like that. I work issue with them. So definitely, and same passage may be having a station in a place, we may need to have some funding, whatever the case may be. So actually, and also as far as this being extended, this time period that we're in, as a former military member, I'm going to tell you there's a high probability that will happen more. For the mere fact of how they're funded. So if you're in the military and you are on deployment, you need 30 days to get BA-18, which means you're separated from your family and you get a stipend for that. Right now it says 29 days, right? They're going to extend it just because they want to make sure that those military members that are currently deployed are open to that particular benefit from being deployed. So we're going to get an extension. How many of those days goes, I don't know. But I can tell you the probability of being a military member, you're not going to come here for 29 days and leave and not be separated from your family and not get that benefit of being separated from your family. And no one who supports military members is going to let that happen to you. So this is going to be extended. Okay. Period, point blank. Okay. I've been deployed many times. Okay. So we're looking at an extension. So the first thing that we do need to do is make sure that we're addressing these high probability issues in a letter and coordinate what things can we do right now. And I support that. If we need to do more, I think we should also, if we need to follow up with a resolution or there's other entities that we need to put, and talk to people on our staff about website information and things like that. I think that is also an option. I'm not excluding anything, but I think as this thing continues to evolve very quickly, we see the mayor having to come out and make statements about certain things that are happening in very fast time, restructuring of certain things. I think it is incumbent on us first to say what we believe and engage that conversation through the letter at first. And then we'll figure out the rest of the things that we also need to do. So I support the suggestion for the reasons that I've stated. I believe Representative Goulet.
Yeah, I'll be, just a quick question. Why are they not letting the personnel on the metro platforms? Did anybody say the reasons for that?
They did not. I got a call and I got one about the Noma Station. So at the Noma Station, you have 3 high schools that all come together. You have Dunbar, McKinley, and Kit. They all come together all at the same time. Literally hundreds of students all converge on that one stop at one time. And they have traditionally made it hard for those students because it's also the same release times a lot of people at home. And a lot of government workers that are in there, ATF is down there, everything, they don't like to be on the training, so they have made complaints. Okay, so we have this thing where they're being very hard to the schools and their leaders as far as even trying to help them navigate this. I don't have the rationale of why they would not want more help to be on the platforms to make sure that students get on the trains and move along and through the system, but they have been resistant to it.
Well, I think
it's the situation.
The why, I can, do some follow-up, because I did not ask the question why. I can do some follow-up on just what the rationale that was given. And sometimes you know the why and the what you are told don't match, because I know that I have stayed in Armory, which has been a place of, very heavy, activity, and of course, Eastern is right there, in addition to city, it's not far from the right back, several schools that are later. And then I had several metro stations where multiple schools converge on. I know that it's been practiced in the past that staff from students have been allowed in the platform. And we can talk offline about why that's needed and all the different things. At this point, though, they are being, if not disallowed, then heavily discouraged from that practice, and it's a problem.
Yeah,
I absolutely done this work as an individual, being employed by. So yes, they are being very resistant.
With the folks that I know, who, you know, have had those interactions to figure out what rationale has been given, and report back.
And I'd be going to follow up with the mod, it's a board, because I think it's counterproductive. I mean, having uniform staff like on the platform, even if they're not doing anything, their mere presence alone is going to deter issues. So like if you recognize staff from the school and they've got their school,
well, also,
you're not going to mess around. Well, yeah, that's
what are we talking about?
And you're literally saying, I'm trying to help you not have to escalate an incident where a student says something and I know this student, I can move this student along as opposed to something else in their interaction with a federal agent or something like that. You're literally offering them support and they're being resistant. So that is what it is. And can't, again, like Representative Johnson, I can't speak to the why, but this is kind of new. And it's not just the station that I've been to in my first week of visitations and going places. It's a number of complaints that I've heard. Wherever you have children that are changing at metro stations, it's been a problem. Metro Center, Gallery. I can go through a lot of them. Even we're having problems even at Anacostia. You know, so there are stations where kids are there and they are making a big presence of them. And right across the street from Anacostia happens to be PMA. And they're not even letting their people like down to the platform. Now they can congregate outside, but they're not letting them down to the platform where they can say, get on the subway. You know, best thing to do is get them home, those type of things. And we're talking about a school that's literally across the street.
Yeah.
So those are the type of things that school leaders are experiencing, even as they try to be helpful and keep their kids out of harm's way.
Because that's something I realized that's which you want the or maybe student board or ones that come in for the college, which is mainly Fourth and Fifth Street. Not only do they have the people with the green bus sign, but also Coolidge staff as well. And something I have noticed is that usually they're usually like just sort of like right across the street, but I've never like usually when fights are happening, and a lot of fights have happened inside the station to the point where not even the station managers and they just coop themselves in their little office. The Woolwich staff and the safety people with the best one, they literally can't get to the right because they were instructed, hey, you cannot come here, and it literally goes on and it escalates even worse and comes a bigger thing to the point where not only Metro Police gets involved, MPD gets involved, and going to Woolwich, I have noticed the presence of MPD increasing, because I used to never not really see them to now we have a police car posted on every block in between Coolidge, Ida B. Wells, and Whittier. So with all within a 3-block span.
Sure. And
we have systems in place within the school. Is my main question is there a way that since we can't have school personnel or people that are related to school personnel take care of these situations, to at least have a familiar face at the station that works with WMATA. So like some officers that work for WMATA, a familiar face that can familiarize themselves with the students, specifically for students, since we can't have that system in place with school personnel going into.
So I think that's what we want to speak to into that, like what can be done to better coordinate these circumstances, conversation from here to the top, right? Because like there needs to be adjustment, and these are the rationales why maybe adjustment. These are the agencies that are hurting all these particular entities, like justice, public safety is public safety aspect. We have all these different groups. What we're recommending is understanding your letter is that look, you need to make these adjustments because we're in a different environment. Okay, so this state court is suggesting based on what conversations that we've had. Since you are over these groups, these are the adjustments that you need to do. So we're going to first do it in the letter. If it can be more, we'll go further. But the first thing, because it's a very quick thing that we can do, is say, look, from listening to our constituents, this is what needs to happen. We've listened to our students, we've listened to our parents, and all those involved, even the people who work these things, school leaders and safe passage individuals. Can you make these adjustments? And then we'll take the next step after we get a response from them, is what I mean. Representative Best. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, were you, I'm
No,
sorry.
I was adding on to what you said, because from the student perspective, what it is like, it's looking like inside. Especially with the sports kids, to where they lose funding. And this fascist approach, what happened, because they might be listening, so heavily on the funding that they don't, it's any slight thing, it's like it's done. So that a lot of students have expressed that is how they feel. And once again, tying into the student safety and outside of the school, it is heavily affecting that.
Just going back to turning folks away, typically there's usually common sense rationale to it, but sometimes it goes over our heads. If we don't answer those questions, my thoughts would be that the attorney that they're blaming, I'm pretty sure before that Metro would let just walk onto the platform and then walk back out, right, without paying a fee. And I think right now, one of the things that they're doing to crack down on is fare version, right? And so the thought process would probably be, well, if that's the case, then maybe we should have extra cards for staff who are walking them down. Like something like that could be a simple solution to that problem. So cause you, like we said, you cannot like say that, oh, but but you can say, we're no longer allowing you to come on.
Just that on, or go through the
To go through the gate, yeah, because they would usually let you go through the gate, but they're probably not doing that right now. With all
And I get it,
Yeah.
and I know that we've done this work together, actually. I get that we've swung the pendulum to this particular area where we're being very stringent about things. But what we're trying to say here is that, look, as we do this, how can we help you to help our students? And these are some of our suggestions. They're common sense things. We think it will de-escalate a lot of the incidents that we're seeing, make students feel a lot more safe in these environments, knowing people that they know from their schools or whatever the case may be, or seeing people in certain areas. So I appreciate it. And I would like to say, it's not just, this is it. To speak to Representative Johnson Law's point, I think there is a continuation because I think us as a board, we do have to get to a point where we have information on our website that actually people can go to and, kind of coordinate, and we can also do that too. And
I'm sorry, I was one thing before I left. And I know I'm showing how long it's been since I've been inside, but a long time ago, they used to stagger the dismissals. Are they still doing that, or are they not doing
can't
that
speak
anymore?
to everybody.
It's a
It's if they have those relations. You have leadership that has changed a lot,
Yeah.
is what I'll say first and foremost, specifically.
We've dealt with the NOMA.
Right.
In
Right, so we've had a lot of leadership change.
Yeah.
At all three of those schools that I was speaking,
Yeah.
there's been a leadership change at all three of those schools that we used to work with,
Yeah.
okay? So I don't know if they're coordinated, I don't know if they have coordinated to stagger their releases and stuff like that, if that was something that they got from their predecessor. But those are things that we have to look at, but I'm just saying, I can't speak specifically.
I think it might be time for us to revisit some of the things that we used to do where we had the students actually all coming together and identifying what their challenges are and addressing them. Sorry, and making proposals. Hopefully, we would have people who could follow up on that. But as we start to think about safe passage, then yeah.
Dr. Fleischer, and then I'll come over to our student representative and then Johnson.
We had our May public meeting panel on students experiencing homelessness, which preceded the federal presence in the district, and so we'll be that might be a part of it as well as working with those panelists to further get that word out. So
something that I would think also talk about is, yes, we have other things at specific stations with other different schools, but the main, I would say main two melting pots that we have specifically are transfer stations, and those transfer stations we've been referring to are Metro Center, LaFont Plaza, and Gallery Place. All three of those stations are melting pots of different schools coming from different areas, and there might be inner conflicts between different areas, especially among students. And because the way our metro system is built, our metro system is not into transit station. Our metro system isn't really like a subway system, it's a rapid transit system to get you from the suburbs downtown back to suburbs. It's not a direct route for students to get to places within a certain amount of time without going through a certain area. And that also bridges the topic of student safety. They might, some things happen within family and stuff, and neighborhood stuff. That happens. And some students try to find better alternatives, but they either don't get home at a reasonable time, it takes them a long time to get home, or they have to face danger, which they shouldn't have to. And once again, on the topic of police force or militarism, things that happen because it's outside of the point of view of people who are specifically trained for what goes on with schools, not only one school, but multiple schools. If somebody, especially people that are not from the district, see what's going on and see something is happening, they don't have the proper system in place to de-escalate that situation, and although they think that they are helping the general consensus of what is going on, they are actually escalating it to a further situation that might end up in a tragedy.
Add to that. Uh, I've already seen one instance for getting, so there's all type of adjustments that, for this, so that's why again, I support this because we have to give them something in what we heard, where they need to make adjustments, first and foremost. I've just seen too many incidents in 1 week. And it's not possible. They made the news or they made somebody's, highlight on their social media. So it is happening. We know it's happening. I'm hearing it from parents, not just from social media directly. So I think that's our first step. I'm gonna close this with Representative Johnson Law, I believe.
It's a pointed question. And the question is, do we have to have a letter to have a resolution? Because Dr. Colson sent something else around, which I think again is very helpful. It's the New York Public Schools. They have a resolution affirming the status of New York City Public Schools as a welcoming citywide district for all students. Do we have to have, and I guess maybe this is for Representative Thompson because she brought it up. Do we have to have a letter to be able to do a resolution as a concrete public facing, basically saying, you know, we're working with educational partners? It's like, for example, one thing they say is therefore it be resolved that the New York City panel for education policy urges the following: that New York City public schools will continue to provide training to its staff and collaborate with union partners and immigration advocates to offer coaching and support. Another one says New York City public schools will work alongside educators and elected officials committed to maintaining a curriculum. I think they're just saying.
So what I will say, I haven't seen it, what I looked at. What I will say is, no, you don't have to. We're play resolution. It's part of the process of getting this stuff, because we're gonna actually present it to us for recommend it and do and everything like that in this particular meeting. And with Representative Thompson, we're posting a letter quickly. It's a matter of time. They quickly get done and go out as soon as that message is done in coordination with those agencies that we identified. So it's not that you have to have one procedure wise. What it does is allow us to address the issue in a more expedited manner.
Okay.
And I believe I heard Representative Thompson say if there is a resolution that actually follow up, that can happen in a month or so. But we did want to actually start addressing these issues with the agency and let them know that we have heard from our constituents and the agencies that currently have authority over, you know, whatever resources those are, we will keep around, whatever case can be, made adjustments in their policies, that we can get that out quicker than waiting to do that proposed and write resolution that will be voted on for another month.
Well, and it also may be a little more direct as well. So because we can pass resolutions all day, but that doesn't mean that everyone is looking at them. Right, and so in this situation, the goal is not necessarily that the act, but the final product. Like, what is it that we wish to accomplish with it? And in this case, with the letter, it's saying like, this is our stance, this is what we've heard, and we're making sure that you get it personally. It goes right to you, to your inbox, that we know that you've received it, as opposed to like putting it in the ethos and hoping that someone sees it. And so in this scenario, I think actually a letter would probably be the best approach in this scenario, and it would probably do a little more than what a resolution could do, even though the resolution would be there and it's like, oh yeah, this is what we believe. The actual letter being sent directly to all of the stakeholders that we needed to go to within the our educational arena, then we know that it would get there. Now, I think one of the other things that you've been talking about is like the public facing things. Now, I think that there are opportunities for us to do that as well. I definitely think that we should look into it. But I think one of the things that, and and I don't want to speak for you, Representative Thompson, but like, why reinvent the wheel? If it's already there, then maybe it's just us making sure that we are sharing that information more widely from the OAG and things like that. So I think this is a scenario where we're both speaking, but sometimes we're missing where we're at. But I think that these are two good approaches for how we can move forward. So I definitely do support the idea of the letter in this case as well.
And so I'll try to keep us moving. What I will say, and Jen is trying to make sure I have an actionable item for this coming out of all this robust conversation that we just had, is that it's not like we're taking anything off the paper, but what I am saying in this particular actionable moment is that I agree with us putting a note together. You can work with Representative Thompson on what that. The PCSB, which is the Public Charter School Board, the other 47% of our schools are those who attend charter schools. I know we have a basis person here, so that would include your school. And so what I'm saying are, and I can't make this decision, I would not make this decision unilaterally to include our logo on that particular line. And all it is saying is that there will be a virtual training, safety training that is coming up. For those who have it on their phones, that I did have the number 2, and I put it in that SBOE one. If you could review that, and what I'm asking is a yes or no. That's all I'm asking. It's that simple. Doesn't require any effort from us or anything like that. Just a yes or no.
I'm supportive.
Yes.
Yes.
There's the question about representative. Go right to it. Okay.
But just curious, who is providing training? Like, who's actually doing it?
The actual training is coming from charter lines, right? They're providing.
My question for the organizers, since it's just a few days away, is like from the staff level, if they need any organization or if they need any of us to be present.
What I heard from their executive director, Ms. Johnson, is that he would love for all of us to come, okay? She definitely will reach out to you and tell you. I don't believe they need anything as far as they've already set it up and it's ready to go. But they just need to know if you want to partner with them. And I will give you guys a little bit more background on this, especially for our students. We have not always worked hand in hand with our counterparts on the Public Charter School Board. And I'm trying to make an effort toward that. Actually, next month we have their executive director coming to one of our working sessions just to talk to us, because we never have had that happen. But as one of our representatives who attends basis, you know, our charter represent about 47% of our ecosystem. And so we want to start building those type of relationships. And these are just ways that we can, that are very low level and that we can start sending the signal like we want to work together, especially in these trying times where we're seeing all of our children. It's not an effect on one particular side of however people look at it as far as traditional and charter. I don't see a division. I think they're all public schools. But we want to make sure that we're addressing things as a ecosystem and not being divisive in how we approach issues. I'm gonna do my way and you do your. So that's kind of like an effort that I've been kind of working for and trying to get us to do things more collaboratively. And this is just one of those efforts.
So I'm generally supportive. I would just like a little bit more information about like what's on the agenda, what's been covered, like that kind of thing. Look, I speak about something, so we're knowledgeable.
Yes.
I would imagine that we would be sharing and all the other things, but did they already provide like the agenda or you know?
they did provide that, and I can forward that out to via email, from Ms. Johnson.
Yes, and do you want us to just respond back to the email with like,
Yes. Okay, so what I'll ask, so I won't make it a yes or no vote down, yes or no right here, is that, we can do that in an email so that also our student representatives can be updated, so I appreciate that. And they have clarity and transparency as opposed to not being included in that vote. And I will send that out, immediately, as soon as I get that, agenda and send it out on the email. They're in our emails now, right? They have their emails. So I'll make sure that you guys have that, and then we'll take a email kind of vote on. We'll try to do that within the next day, 24 hours, hopefully, okay? All right. Thanks, everyone. That know if we have any more questions, but I think that is it as far as items we have for new business. So I'll go back to our script and find a place, because our meeting actually did go pretty quick, even with the robust discussion that we've had. And so I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we had adjournment. As well, let me read my statement for adjournment, and we just gonna go through this. Thank you, members, for your time and engagement tonight. Members of the public, you can visit SBOE.dc.gov to learn how to submit and present testimony at an upcoming public meeting. All public witnesses must submit a written copy of their testimony to our staff for the public record. The topic of our expert panel this month is reimagining high school mathematics requirements. Members voted on this topic at the August working session. Seeing no further business before the state board, I would like to entertain a motion for adjournment. Moved by by Johnson Law, second.
Wait, I'm sorry.
If we did not do that. If not,
Wasn't on the
not in
agenda.
there. It wasn't, so I guess we're not.
we just skip it.
Yes, yes,
We'll figure it out next month.
we'll figure it out next. Snack.
Not to 2 months in advance.
But I appreciate that, because I kind of noticed it, but I wasn't trying to, But there has been a motion. I don't know if I did not receive a second, I don't believe. Yes. It's been seconded. What's that?
Wilson has. You.
She's seconding the motion.
I was just seconding the motion.
Okay, I was about to say I'm in the middle of a motion, and you gotta have to go with that. Okay, so it has been seconded. I'm gonna go with Dr. Coates because she wants to make sure of that. I know there was some people here who heard it, but I'm gonna go with Representative Colson as second, and then all right. It has been properly moved and seconded. All in favor? Any opposition? Opposed? None have them? No, it carries. We are now adjourned at exactly 7:20. Thank you for your time.